Thanks very much indeed for coming in. If you're hosting the Nigerian president and you've just had a big morning event about the G20, it's good politics to start off by saying you'll support Nigeria in joining the G20, isn't it? It'll set the tone for your meetings that afternoon.
Indeed, it will. The timing couldn't be better. Very opportune for this to have happened at this point. Literally on the launch of our G20 presidency. So it's good. It sets a nice precedence.
It's also one of those political moments where there's no cost, right? No one in South Africa is going to shout. You're doing it for Africa. It's an easy thing to do.
But South Africa has always been doing that, for Africa in the G20. So this, comes as no surprise. It's part of, those efforts. I mean, even the EU, South Africa used to, speak quite a lot, pushing and promoting the membership of the inclusion of Africa, the EU, in the G20, and no surprise.
I'm sure the week will not end without someone talking about permanent seats at the United Nations Security Council, but I'm going to get back to that in a moment. The President making the point in his speech earlier this morning that the G20, of which South Africa is now the chair, involves countries that produce 85% of the world's GDP, 75% of international trade. It's the first time a country from our continent actually has the presidency of this. I mean, that's significant. That's surely very important that our continent now, and South Africa being the representative for the moment, actually has that position.
Well, Stephen, it's a big deal. It's a big deal because it casts Africa as an involved party in global affairs, right? An active participant in global affairs. It gets to participate in the decision making that hold quite a heavy influence on the lived realities of peoples of the globe. I mean, the G20 is President explained, an organization of 20 largest economies, influential economies in the world, and their decisions impact literally on what happens on the global economy. It impacts on what happens to with multilateralism. It's a big deal, and Africa literally is taking its place proper now. It's hosting this thing and is able to drive a particular agenda in the discussions. It's a monumental occasion for South Africa and Africa.
I mean, Ramaphosa, he plays this politics well in some ways. I mean, you can criticize him for many things, but if you remember that he led the African Leaders Peace Initiative, which was, for the first time in my memory, a group of leaders from Africa going to Europe to help them try and stop the war between Russia and Ukraine. I mean, all of these things are about building up momentum to try and increase South Africa's presence in the world.
Yeah, I mean, some of us have been debating with with colleagues, about Africa. That project was criticized by many. What do they think they are? Forget should focus, on African affairs. Forget, all these, other things, as if those other things do not, forget about, Africa. Africa has to participate. It has to play its, role like any other region of the world in global affairs. I mean, if it means, engaging in a peace process, that could ultimately lead to, better economic outcomes, for Africa even, better food security, i.e., the security of maize and, fertilizer, and, because we get, quite a bit of that from Russia and Ukraine, for instance. So it's important for Africa to play its role, to be present, like any other, part of the world. So it was an important step. It was a correct step in my view. We did a good thing, by doing that. I don't think that it harms, South Africa or Africa in any way to participate at that level, which we should. We are very much part of everything else that happens in the world.
So, I mean, the timing, and we've gone 7 minutes in this interview, and now I have to mention the name of the person who's going to hang over the entire year, and you know who I mean. He's the presidential elect in the United States. I mean, the G20 is a multilateral organization. The whole point is that you work together, you talk together, you find solutions together. It may not always be consensus, but you find some kind of common ground. And now we have someone who really believes in the art of the deal. He's very transactional. He's going to be leading the biggest economy in the world, biggest economy in the G20. He's going to use every opportunity he can to show his voters in the United States that he will elbow China wherever he can. They, of course, are also in the G20 in the world's second biggest economy. Is it going to be possible for Ramaphosa, for South Africa, to really do much for the G20 with Trump in the White House?
Well,
that was quite a sigh.
Yeah. There was a G20, well before there was, Trump. There was a G20 during his first, presidency, and the G20 will continue, beyond, his presidency. The work will go on, right? You don't exactly choose who becomes president, of what country. You deal with the agenda, at hand, right? South Africa has, clearly specified, defined, its agenda, what it's trying to achieve for its presidency, and that's, the tone that it will take and adopt, throughout the presidency, engage, for those issues, right, and try and achieve them. Now, the extent to which, things will be attained, things will be achieved, I do not think, are solely dependent, on who becomes the president of the United States. I mean, you have Europe that is represented, you have South America, you have Asia, you have, it's 21 large, influential economies that are represented there. They will negotiate a whole host, of these solutions. And remember also, Stephen, that global challenges, impact the globe. Right, hence they're global, right? So all of us, all of the parties of the G20 are interested in finding solutions to issues that affect everybody. Yes, it's a bit of a snag, if you like, maybe a little bit of noise that you already have a Trump tweeting, that he will up tariffs 100%, on products from BRICS countries, for instance, and those are large, significant influential members of the G20. So it signals, something, perhaps, a little bit of aggression, in his approach to relations with BRICS members. We don't know. But, certainly, members of the G20 are mature enough, to be able to proceed nonetheless, in real terms, on real, issues, practical issues. The world isn't, looking to Trump, for savior, role. There are many issues. Issues will be resolved by, the collective of the G20 as they pursue them. So,
Mikatekiso Kubayi is a senior researcher at the Institute for Global Dialogue. I have plenty more to ask him, so do stay with us.